Mr. Vice President, thanks for being here.
Good evening, Brett.
First of all, your overall impression to this report, what's in it and its release?
Well, I think it's a terrible piece of work, basically. It seems to me it's deeply flawed. They didn't bother to interview key people involved in the program. And I think that it's a sort of a classic example, which you see too often in Washington, where a group of politicians get together and sort of throw the professionals under the bus. We've seen it happen before. I can remember Iran-Contra. What happened here was that we asked the agency to go take steps and put in place programs that were designed to catch the bastards who killed 3,000 of us on 9/11 and to make sure it didn't happen again. And that's exactly what they did, and they deserve a lot of credit, not the kind of condemnation that they're receiving from the Senate Democrats.
The Feinstein report suggests that President Bush was not fully briefed on the program and was deliberately kept in the dark by the CIA.
Not true. Didn't happen. Read his book. He talks about it extensively in his memoirs. He was, in fact, an integral part of the program. He had to approve it before we went forward with it.
Was there ever a point when you believed you knew more about the program and how the U.S. government was interrogating than the President did?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that. I mean, there were lots of things I read, while he was doing other things. He had a much broader portfolio than I did, and I spent a lot of my time just on national security. But I think that he knew everything he needed to know and wanted to know about the program, and there was no question.
I mean, did he know the details?
I think he knew certainly the techniques, that we did discuss the techniques. There's nothing, there was no effort on our part to keep him from that. He was, just as with the terrorist surveillance program. On the terrorist surveillance program, he had to personally sign off on that every 30 to 45 days. So the notion that the committee's trying to peddle it, somehow the agency was operating on a rogue basis and we weren't being told, or the president wasn't being told, is just a flat-out lie.
I mean, the report suggests it was 4 years before he was briefed. 2006.
Read his book. He talks about, first with respect to the detention program and then with respect to the enhanced interrogation program. It started in the summer of '02, and he was fully informed.
New York Times writes it this way about the report. When told about one detainee being chained to the ceiling of his cell, clothed in a diaper and forced to urinate and defecate on himself, even a president known for his dead or alive swagger expressed discomfort. True?
I don't have any idea. I've never heard of such a thing. Brett, I guess partly what really bugs me as I watch all this process unfold is the men and women of the CIA did exactly what we wanted to have them do in terms of taking on this program. We said, we've got to go use enhanced techniques that we're going to find out. And we've got Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who's the mastermind of 9/11, who has killed 3,000 Americans, taken down the World Trade Center, hit the Pentagon, would have taken out the White House or the Capitol building if, in fact, they hadn't been for the passengers on United 93. Now, he is in our possession. We know he's the architect. And what are we supposed to do? Kiss him on both cheeks and say, please, please, tell us what you know? Of course not. We did exactly what needed to be done in order to catch those who were guilty on 9/11 and to prevent a further attack. And we were successful on both parts.
This report says it was not successful.
The report's full of crap, excuse me. I said hooey yesterday. Let me use the real word.
You're on cable.
It's okay. You can bleep it. Yeah, okay.
But you're saying that this led to actionable intelligence.
Absolutely. Look at the statement by the former directors and deputy directors of the CIA issued just within the last 24 hours. It did, in fact, produce actionable intelligence that was vital in the success of keeping the country safe from further attacks.
Mr. Vice President, some of the tactics, though, described in this report are horrifying. I mean, is there anything that U.S. officials, interrogators, are alleged to have done that you would consider torture?
I don't know all the allegations that are out there. Torture was something we very carefully avoided. One of the reasons we went to the Justice Department on the program was because we wanted them to tell us where's the line legally between what's acceptable and what isn't, and they did. That's what came forth in the legal opinion that we got before proceeding with the program, Brett. This is in terms of there being some problems in the program. There may well have been, but I don't think they represented that the Senate report represents the truth of what actually happened. They put together a report without ever talking to anybody who was involved in the program.
But at one point, this report describes interrogators pureeing food of one detainee and inserting it in his anus, something the agency called rectal rehydration. I mean, is that torture?
I don't know anything about that specific instance. I can't speak to that. I guess the question is, what are you prepared to do in order to get the truth about future attacks against the United States. Now, that was not one of the authorized or approved techniques. There were 12 of them, as I recall. They were all techniques that we used in training on our own people, even waterboarding. People have been very concerned about waterboarding, calling it torture. First of all, it was not deemed torture by the lawyers, and secondly, it worked. It, in fact, provided us the information we needed to prevent future attacks.
How intimately involved were you involved in the legal process of setting up that justification? In other words, the frame for torture was narrowed in these legal decisions. A memo in August 2002 that essentially reframed Geneva rules on torture and said the president had a lot more authority. You were intimately involved.
Strongly supportive of the program, strongly supportive of the opinions coming out of the Justice Department. The work that was done was, I think, absolutely essential and absolutely crucial. And I guess the thing that always struck me was how careful the agency was in coming forward and saying, yes, we can do the following, but we need authorization. We need a legal opinion out of the Justice Department about what's copacetic, what's legitimate, and we need the approval of the President of the United States and the National Security Council. And they got both. And they did a hell of a job.
But you rewrote the justification.
I didn't rewrite the justification. The lawyers wrote it over in the Office of Legal Counsel and the Justice Department.
You had an intimate role in dealing with it.
I was strongly supportive of the program. I didn't read the opinion and say you've got to change this and change that. But my job as a vice president who was actively involved in the national security area was to push to get programs like this in place, which in fact the CIA said they could produce better results if they had more authority.
Well,
we got them that authority.
You had one detainee, Gul Rahman, who died in captivity, November 2002.
3,000 Americans died on 9/11 because of what these guys did. And I have no sympathy for them. I don't know the specific details. I'm sure there were instances cited in the report. I haven't read the report, but I know for a fact.
No, wait, you haven't read it?
6,000 pages?
No, but how about 500 summaries?
I've seen parts of it. I read summaries of it. I keep coming back again to the basic fundamental proposition, Brett. How nice do you want to be to the murderers of 3,000 Americans on 9/11?
What do you say to the people who say America is better than these methods that John McCain takes to the Senate floor yesterday, gives a pretty impassioned speech? Take a listen just to a piece of it, and I'll have you react to it.
I dispute wholeheartedly that it was right for them to use these methods, which this report makes clear were neither in the best interest of justice, nor our security, nor the ideals we have sacrificed so much blood and treasure to defend. We are always Americans, and different, stronger, and better than those who would destroy us.
Your reaction to that, sir?
My reaction to that is that John and I had a fundamental disagreement about the program. I think that what needed to be done was done. I think we were perfectly justified in doing it, and I'd do it again in a minute.